designed it. That's where so many of us get stuck. We want certainty before we move. We want God to hand us a step-by-step plan, something we can touch, something we can measure. But if you had all the details, you wouldn't need faith. Faith is what takes you into the unknown and makes you walk even when your knees are shaking. Faith doesn't demand a map. It simply clings to the guide. The truth is, the path isn't hidden from you, it's hidden for you. God doesn't reveal every step at once, because if he did, you'd either run ahead of him or run away from him. So he gives you just enough light for the step you're on. Think about it when you drive at night. Your headlights don't show you the entire highway. They only show you enough to keep you moving forward safely. But you don't stop driving because you can't see the end of the road. You trust that as long as the headlights are on, the path will continue to unfold. That's how faith works. God doesn't show you the finish line right away, but he equips you with just enough revelation, just enough direction, just enough strength to take the next step. And as you move, the way becomes clearer. The danger is when you stop moving, when you freeze in fear because you can't see the whole journey. Faith requires motion. And yet so many of us delay obedience because we're waiting on clarity. We say, God, just show me what's next and I'll move. But clarity is not the prerequisite for obedience. Trust is. You may not know how you're going to get out of debt, but if God said he will provide, then you step forward like it's already done. You may not know when the healing is coming, but if God said he is the healer, then you live like it's already on the way. Faith doesn't sit still waiting for proof. Faith moves because the promise is enough. And when you move, you discover that provision has been waiting for you the whole time. The problem is we want God to make sense before we move, but God's ways will never fully make sense to human minds. He says, my thoughts are higher. My ways are higher. That means there will always be a gap between what you see and what he knows, and that gap is where faith grows. If you try to understand every detail, you'll paralyze yourself. If you demand explanations for every season, you'll waste precious time. God doesn't owe you explanations. He offers you an invitation to trust him even when your questions remain unanswered. Some of you are stuck in cycles not because God hasn't spoken, but because you won't move until you understand. You're waiting for the waters to part before you step, but the miracle isn't in standing still. It's in moving forward. The Red Sea didn't part until Moses stretched out his staff. The Jordan River didn't move until the priest's feet touched the water. The miracle wasn't waiting on God. It was waiting on obedience. And it's the same for you. What looks like a wall in front of you might actually be a doorway, but you'll never know until you step into it. This is where real strength is built, learning to trust God without all the answers. It's easy to trust when you can see the plan. It's easy to trust when the resources are stacked in your favor. But strength is developed when you step out on nothing and discover God was your foundation all along. Strength is forged when you walk blind and realize he's been guiding every step. You don't have to see the whole path to know you're going to make it. You just have to trust the one who wrote your finish before you ever began. Some people believe that success is reserved only for the most talented, the most skilled, or the most educated. They look at their lack of qualifications and convince themselves that they will never make it. But talent alone doesn't finish the race. Endurance does. Talent can get you noticed, but endurance will keep you standing when others have walked away. Endurance is what separates those who almost had it from those who actually finished it. When storms rise, talent complains, but endurance adapts. When doors close, talent gets frustrated, but endurance knocks again until the door opens. Talent can take you places, but only endurance can keep you there. The truth is, life doesn't reward the ones who start strong. It rewards the ones who refuse to quit. Some of the most gifted people you've ever seen gave up too soon. They had brilliance. They had opportunities, but when pressure showed up, they folded. And then you look at others who didn't seem to have the advantage. They weren't the most skilled. They didn't have all the resources, but they kept going when others gave up. And because they endured, they outlasted people who were more talented than they ever were. Life doesn't ask how fast you ran at the beginning. It asks if you crossed the finish line at the end. Endurance doesn't mean you never feel tired. It doesn't mean you never think about quitting. It means that even when your body is weak, your spirit says, not yet. Endurance is waking up every day and choosing to fight again. Even when yesterday drained you, endurance is choosing progress over perfection, because sometimes the step you take is small, but it still counts. And as long as you're moving forward, even an inch at a time, you're still in the race. Too many people disqualify themselves because their journey doesn't look glamorous, but endurance doesn't care how pretty the process looks. It only cares that you don't stop. And here's the secret. Endurance is built in the struggle. Every time you push through when you feel like quitting, you're strengthening your ability to endure. Every time you finish something you thought was too heavy, you're teaching your soul resilience. Endurance isn't something you're born with. It's something you develop. And you develop it by refusing to surrender in the places that were designed to break you. You don't get endurance by skipping the storm. You get it by standing in it. That's why trials come, not to destroy you, but to teach you how to outlast what's trying to stop you. Some of the greatest victories in history weren't won by the fastest or the smartest. They were won by the ones who refused to quit. Look at athletes who didn't have the natural build, but trained harder than anyone else. Look at leaders who were counted out, but refused to stop showing up. They didn't win because they had the most. It's because they refused to let quitting be an option. The same principle applies to your life. You may not have the head start that others do. You may not have the applause of the crowd. But if you have the endurance to keep pressing forward, you'll see results that talent alone could never produce. That's why you can't let weariness convince you that you're finished. Quitting is the only guarantee of failure. You can be tired, you can be frustrated, you can even fall down, but if you get back up and keep moving, you're still in the race. Endurance doesn't promise ease, but it promises victory to those who hold on. The enemy doesn't fear your talent as much as he fears your endurance, because he knows if you keep showing up, if you keep praying, if you keep working, if you keep believing, you will outlast every attack and you will see what God promised. You've been asking yourself over and over, why me? Why this? Why now? And it feels like you're being punished, like every mistake you ever made has caught up with you. But hear me. Pain is not punishment. Pain is preparation. What you're going through is not proof that God is angry with you. It's proof that he's building something in you. Every tear you've cried, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, it's not wasted. It's part of the process that's shaping you for the destiny you haven't even walked into yet. If you confuse preparation with punishment, you'll miss the very thing God is using to strengthen you. Pain has a way of exposing what comfort keeps hidden. When life is easy, we don't notice the cracks in our character, the weaknesses in our foundation, or the places in our heart that need healing. But let pain enter the room, and suddenly the real you is revealed. Pain uncovers the insecurities you've been masking. Pain shows you the pride you didn't know you were carrying. Pain forces you to confront what you've been avoiding, not because God wants to break you down, but because he wants to build you up stronger, wiser, and more unshakable than you were before. Preparation is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Think about athletes in training. They don't become strong by sitting on the couch. They become strong by pushing their bodies past the point of comfort. The weights tear the muscle so it can grow back stronger. The drills test their endurance so they can last longer. The pain of training is never the punishment of failure. It's the process of readiness. The same is true for you. God is training you with the weight of your trial so that when the next level comes, you can carry it. If he let you step into your destiny unprepared, the very thing you prayed for could crush you. Preparation makes sure the blessing doesn't break you. And let's be real. Sometimes preparation looks like loss. Sometimes it looks like people walking away, jobs ending, doors slamming shut. You think you're being stripped, but God is pruning. He's removing what you don't need, cutting away what will slow you down, taking out what will poison your future. It hurts because you were attached to it, but he knows if it stayed, it would hinder you. So instead of calling it rejection, start seeing it as redirection. Instead of calling it punishment, start seeing it as alignment. God is not trying to take from you. He's trying to position you. And here's the truth. Pain gives you something ease never will: perspective. When you've been broken and God restores you, you don't take restoration for granted. When you've cried yourself to sleep and God gives you joy, you don't treat joy lightly. When you've had to fight your way out of a pit and God places you on solid ground, you stand taller and stronger than before. Pain prepares you to appreciate what's coming. It teaches you gratitude, humility, resilience. It gives you the empathy to help others through what you've already survived. The very thing that tried to break you becomes the testimony that lifts someone else. So instead of resenting your pain, start respecting its purpose. Don't let the enemy convince you that pain means God has left you. On the contrary, God is closest when it hurts the most. He's molding you, shaping you, chiseling away everything that doesn't belong until what's left is pure, refined, and unshakable. Pain is not a sign that you're unworthy. It's a sign that you're in process. And when the process is complete, you'll look back and realize the pain was not punishment. It was the preparation for the promise. Don't be surprised when the fight gets fiercest right before the breakthrough. The enemy doesn't waste energy on people going nowhere. He targets those who are on the edge of something great. That's why the pressure has been heavier, why the attacks feel relentless, why the weight on your shoulders has been so suffocating. It's not proof that you're failing, it's proof that you're close. The devil doesn't bother with what doesn't threaten him. The very fact that you've been under siege is the evidence that destiny is near. He knows that if you survive this, you're going to step into a season he cannot stop. The hardest battles come right before the biggest blessings. Look at the pattern of scripture. Israel faced the Red Sea only after leaving Egypt. David faced Goliath right before his name was lifted in Israel. Jesus endured the cross right before the resurrection. The enemy saves his strongest artillery for the last stretch because he knows if you can just push through, the promise is yours. So when the warfare intensifies, don't assume you're doing something wrong. Realize you're closer than you think. The darkness always fights hardest when dawn is about to break. But here's the strategy of the enemy. He doesn't have to defeat you. He just wants to discourage you enough to make you quit. If he can get you to surrender your faith, to forfeit your position, to lay down your assignment, then he never has to fight you again. That's why the attacks feel so personal, so targeted, so overwhelming. He knows if he can break your spirit, he can keep you from the very thing God already wrote with your name on it. But what the enemy doesn't understand is that pressure only produces power. Every attack he sends your way is only pushing you deeper into the arms of God. That's why you can't let the intensity of the fight trick you into thinking you're losing. Sometimes the warfare you're experiencing is not about what you did wrong, but about what you're doing right. You've shifted atmospheres. You've broken generational patterns. You've stepped out in obedience, and now hell is nervous. Demons don't get agitated over mediocrity. They tremble over destiny. So if your life feels like all hell has broken loose, it's because heaven has marked you for more. The battle is an announcement you are next in line for breakthrough. Understand this. Resistance is confirmation. A runner knows that the closer they get to the finish line, the more their body screams to stop. Not because they're weak, but because they're almost there. Likewise, the closer you get to your God-ordained finish, the louder the enemy will shout, the harder the obstacles will rise, and the more your flesh will want to quit. But the pain of resistance is not a signal to stop. It's a sign to press harder. Breakthrough doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in the press. That's why scripture says, don't grow weary in well-doing, for in due season you shall reap if you faint not. So let the attacks come. Let the pressure rise. Let the storm rage. It's only proof that you're on the right track. You're not being destroyed. You're being pushed. You're not being abandoned, you're being advanced. The enemy knows he can't take your destiny, so his only hope is to convince you to walk away from it. But when you stand your ground, when you refuse to bow to the fear, when you decide that quitting is not an option, you disarm every weapon he's tried to form against you. The attack is real, but so is the breakthrough waiting on the other side. You think it's just you. You think you're the only one carrying a weight so heavy that it feels impossible to move. You think you're the only one crying tears nobody else sees, fighting battles nobody else knows, and holding on by a thread that feels like it's about to snap. Loneliness has a way of convincing you that you're forgotten, abandoned, and invisible. But the truth is, you're not running alone. Heaven has assigned help you cannot always see. The very breath in your lungs is proof that God has not left your side. Even when you feel isolated, you are surrounded. There are angels assigned to your journey, dispatched at the very moment you cried out for help. You may not see them with your natural eyes, but they're standing guard over your steps, fighting battles you don't even know exist. While you're sleeping, they're protecting. While you're working, they're covering. While you're worrying, they're warring. That's why you made it through dangers that should have taken you out. That's why accidents missed you, sickness couldn't hold you, and destruction passed by you. Not because you were strong enough to escape it, but because heaven stood between you and what was sent to destroy you. You didn't survive by chance. You survived because you weren't alone. And beyond angelic protection, you've got the very presence of God running beside you. The Spirit of God is not a distant observer. He is an active companion. He's in your steps, in your breath, in your fight. When you feel like collapsing, he becomes your strength. When you don't know what to pray, he intercedes for you with groans too deep for words. When you want to walk away, he whispers, keep going. You are never truly running on empty because the source inside you never runs dry. God's presence is not seasonal. It is constant. And his constancy is the guarantee that you will finish. Sometimes we get so focused on what we don't have around us that we forget who we do have within us. You may not have the support of friends. You may not have family that understands. You may not have people cheering you on. But greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. If God is for you, it doesn't matter who walks away from you. If God is with you, it doesn't matter who tries to stand against you. Stop counting who left and start counting who stayed. Stop obsessing over who didn't clap and start remembering who carried you when your legs gave out. And let's not forget, sometimes the loneliness you feel is not evidence that you're abandoned, but proof that God has pulled you aside to develop you. Runners don't train in crowded stadiums. They train in hidden places. Champions are built in solitude before they are revealed in public. The season where you feel most alone may be the season God is strengthening you for the race ahead. He's stripping away the distractions, the noise, the dependency on others, so that when you cross the finish line, you'll know beyond a shadow of a doubt. It wasn't them, it was him. He didn't leave you in isolation. He met you there. So even when loneliness screams, remember you are never truly alone. Heaven is invested in your finish. Angels are on assignment. Grace is surrounding you. The presence of God is living inside you. You are running with divine company. And because you are not running alone, you will not collapse under the weight. The race may feel long, but you are sustained by a strength greater than